Today, we're diving into a name that is, for all intents and purposes, synonymous with Indian industry. Dhirubhai Ambani. We're talking about a titan who literally built one of the world's most powerful corporations from scratch, changing the entire landscape of his country. But as you'll see, his story is, well, it's not that simple. Let's get into it.
So this was his grand vision. A simple idea, right? But also profoundly ambitious. You have to remember, this was a time when a phone call on India was a total luxury, and he saw a future where it was cheaper than mailing a postcard. He was convinced that connecting India was the key to unlocking its potential. It's a quote that just perfectly captures the massive scale of his thinking.
And look, this wasn't just some pipe dream. His son, Mukesh Ambani, eventually made it happen with Reliance Jio. We're talking free calls and dirt cheap data for hundreds of millions of people. It fundamentally changed the nation. And that's the official story, the legend of a true visionary.
But then there's the other side of the story. A much, much darker one. It's a tale of brutal corporate warfare, of bending the entire government to his will. And get this, there's a biography about him, The Polyester Prince, that was so explosive, the family's influence has made it pretty much impossible to find in India. I mean, at one point, a single used copy was listed on Amazon for almost $1,000.
And that's really the core question we're going to tackle in this explainer. Was he a nation builder who just had to play by a different set of rules? Or was he a master manipulator who saw the system as something to be conquered? Let's try to find out. Okay, so first, let's look at the official version of events. The rags to riches story that everybody knows and admires, the one that defines his public image.
Dhirubhai's origins were about as modest as they come. He was the son of a village school teacher, and his first hustle was selling snacks to pilgrims. At just 16 years old, he moves to Yemen for a job as a clerk. A decade later, he comes back to Bombay with a little bit of money and a whole lot of ambition, ready to start his own business trading spices and yarn. And from those tiny beginnings, he built an absolute empire. Just to give you a sense of the scale here, today, the retail part of the company he founded, Reliance, serves nearly 300 million customers. That's almost the entire population of the United States, served by just one division of his company. It's just massive.
So how did he do it? I mean, how does one guy build something so colossal in an economy that was famously incredibly difficult to operate in? Well, the answer lies in his complete mastery of a system known as the License Raj. So for decades, India's economy was this labyrinth of government controls. If you wanted to produce something, import something, or even just expand your business, you needed a license. This system was originally meant to protect local industries, but in reality, it just suffocated them. And that created these huge opportunities for anyone who knew how to work the system. Now, this quote from a major banker at the time really nails it. He points out Ambani's true genius. It wasn't just about working hard. It was about seeing loopholes and angles in all that red tape that literally nobody else saw. He didn't just play the game. He basically read the source code. And so Ambani came up with this playbook, which you can see right here. Step 1, find a really profitable loophole, like the huge money you could make importing polyester yarn if you had the right export incentives. Step 2, build the political connections you need to get the exclusive licenses. And then, and here's the brilliant part, step 3, use those same bureaucratic rules to block your rivals, while you, step 4, scale up your own business at a crazy, breathtaking speed. An aggressive strategy like that, it's bound to lead to conflict. And the most famous one was a brutal corporate feud that came to be known as the Polyester Wars, a battle that would define his whole career and end up spilling into the highest levels of government. So on one side, you had Dhirubhai Ambani, the self-made outsider, the guy who had mastered this new, complicated system. And on the other, you had Nusli Wadia of Bombay Dyeing, the UK-educated heir of a powerful old-money industrial family. This was a classic clash, old versus new, the establishment versus the disruptor. And Ambani was never, ever one to back down. In a meeting with his critics, many of whom were secretly buying from him or selling to him on the side, he allegedly threw down this challenge. It just perfectly shows his confrontational style. He knew that in the messy world of the License Raj, pretty much everyone's hands were a little dirty.
The tactics they used in this war were just relentless. We're talking public smear campaigns in the newspapers questioning the quality of Wadia's products,
Sudden, last-minute changes in government import policies that, what a coincidence, always seem to favor one side. Rival shipments would get mysteriously stuck in customs for weeks. And in one absolutely audacious move, Ambani even managed to create a massive oversupply of a key chemical, basically making Wadia's brand new factory useless for a while.
So yeah, this wasn't just some business fat anymore. The fight between Ambani and Wadia blew up, pulling in the entire political machine of the Indian state. This is where a corporate battle turned into a national conflict. Pretty soon, the Prime Minister himself, Rajiv Gandhi, was involved. Newspapers became weapons, with each side planting stories against the other. Government agencies were used, not for justice, but to harass the competition. This whole thing had become a proxy war for influence over the future of India itself.
The allegations that came out were just staggering. There was a loan mela, or loan festival, where state-owned banks gave out these huge, shady loans to front companies just to pump up the price of Reliance shares. Mysterious offshore companies in the Isle of Man, with names like, I kid you not, Crocodile and Fiasco, were funneling millions into the company. There was even an alleged plot to murder Nuzli Wadia, and a Reliance manager was actually arrested for it. Every scandal was bigger than the last.
And this quote right here says it all. DMT was the key chemical they were fighting over. The fact that a government minister could say that the fate of the entire country depended on the price of this one industrial chemical, it just shows you how high the stakes had become. The polyester wars weren't a business feud anymore. They were literally shaping the destiny of a nation.
So, when all the dust finally settled, what are we left with? How are we supposed to make sense of this incredibly complicated, controversial figure? And that brings us to his legacy. You know, there are two totally different ways to look at Dhirubhai Ambani, and honestly, both have a point. To his millions of admirers, he was a hero. He was a visionary who brought the stock market to the average person, creating this massive new class of small investors in India. And he built a truly world-class company against all odds. But to his critics, he was a ruthless operator who broke every rule in the book, crushed his competition, and dangerously mixed corporate power with state power.
His son Mukesh frames his dad's philosophy like this: focus on making a huge population-scale impact, and the money will just follow as a byproduct. It's a really compelling way to frame it, one that definitely puts that visionary narrative front and center, kind of moving past all the controversial methods.
And you really can't argue with the results. That original vision, making a phone call cheaper than a postcard, it was fulfilled, and then some. Reliance Jio now connects almost 500 million Indians. That's more than a third of the entire country. He absolutely delivered on that promise to revolutionize lives through connectivity. The scale of what was achieved is just undeniable. Which leaves us with one last very difficult question. The story of Dhirubhai Ambani really forces us to ask, for the builders, the visionaries, the people who create whole industries and shape the future of a nation, do the ends justify the means? It's a question that's just as relevant today as it was back in the middle of the polyester wars.